G'day Gear Junkies, Jason here. My friends at PastFx have sent me out one of their new pedals to demo, which is the very cleverly named Cologne. This is their modern take on the old electro-harmonic small clone. And as you'll see, this thing is super tweakable and covers a lot of ground. But before I begin, if you like this kind of content, please help me out by subscribing, and you can support this channel by going to the Middle Age Gear Junkie store and buying some merchandise. Every little bit helps. Thanks. Here's my clean sound. I'm playing my Cort M600 and I'm going stereo into my Fender Deluxe Reverb and the orange Terra Stamp. The Terra Stamp is powering a box with two Celestion Vintage 30s. And here's the Cologne. Beautiful. Now, before I really get into this, I want to thank Verly from PastFx for sending this out. I've had a really good working relationship with these guys for a few years now. Now, compared to the pedal that the Cologne is based on, it has a lot more knobs and switches. So I'm just going to take you through and show you what each aspect of this pedal does. So first of all, we've got a level knob down here, and that lets you attenuate your volume. I like to set that at about unity gain, but if you feel that you're disappearing from the mix when you turn on your chorus pedal, you can always give it a bit more level. In the top left-hand corner here, we have the mix knob. Now you'll notice that I have that maxed out, and I'm going to leave it maxed out pretty much all of this demo. But what it allows you to do is to remove some of that wet signal if it's, for example, taking over your sound. If you want a more subtle chorus sound, you can remove some of that wet signal by using the mix knob. So if I go to a more extreme setting with a faster rate here, it's still there, but it's not overtaking my sound anymore. So as you just saw, the rate control speeds up the vibrato. I'm just going to go back to full mix. Now when I slow it right down like that, it almost becomes like a sort of really slow flanger or sort of comb filter sound. It sounds really metallic. I tend to like the rate control somewhere between about 9 and 3 o'clock, but yeah, you can get some pretty extreme settings. So if I turn the rate up, and I'm going to turn the depth up to maximum, I can now get those sort of Leslie type tones that are really good for playing really eerie, weird sort of sounding stuff. So while I've got the rate and depth up like that, I'll play the two most famous notes in the world. That sounds pretty much bang on. Now, probably my favorite aspect about this pedal is the decade switch in the middle. This basically gives you 3 different flavors of the small clone. So if you know anything about EHX, they were famous for just using whatever parts they could get a hold of at the time. So if you have a small clone from the mid-80s, for example, it will sound different to ones that came out after and ones that came out before, because the likelihood is that the parts are different. If you watch, there's a really good video by a channel called Nirvana Guitars where he actually compares 3 different eras of small clones, and they do sound noticeably different. So up until now, it's been in 90s mode. So I'm going to take you through all 3 decades, starting with the 70s. That was the 70s. Now we've got the 80s. And back to the 90s. So for me, I would say that the 70s is the most subtle and probably sounds the best for slower speeds. The 80s one sounds the most drastic. And I think that the 90s one is like a happy medium between the two. Because the 70s setting is the most subtle, I think it does a pretty good job of some of those glassy clean tones that Nirvana use sometimes. Although the Kurtz Cologne here is aimed at Nirvana fans, it is an excellent chorus pedal in its own right, and it does a really good job of those 90s alternative acts. You might have noticed me playing with the depth control here. Now this is an 8-way rotary switch. If you're familiar with the original small clone, it had a 2-way switch for high and low depth modes. Now, when this is in position 3 as it is now, that's the equivalent of the low depth mode, and then all the way up in position 8, that's the equivalent of the high depth mode. But it gives you a lot of in-between options. So I'll show you what each one of them sounds like. So position 1. Very, very subtle. So that's the equivalent of the low mode on the original unit. Position 4. Now with the depth all the way up, I'm going to have a go at playing Come As You Are. I can't make up my mind whether it sounds best on 80s or 90s mode for this, so maybe you can let me know in the comments. Now this has a phase switch here in the middle which flips the phase of one of the outputs. This is really going to be only applicable if you're running it in stereo. It sort of hollows it out a little bit. Now, upon speaking to Verly about this, she said that it really depends on the gear that you're running. You may prefer to run it out of phase. Lastly, this little set of scissors here indicates that these two are cut switches. We have a low and a high cut switch. Now, chorusing actually doubles your signal and it can make it really thick. Now, I'm on the neck pickup and have been for a little while now, and I've had the low cut engaged just to get rid of some of that extra bottom end that makes it really, really thick. So this is with the low cut on. Just helps to clean it up and take away some of that boomy bottom end. And we also have a high cut switch. So if I was playing on, say, the bridge pickup on a Stratocaster that's very bright, I might be able to cut some of those high frequencies out. I think that's a really useful added extra. Lastly, I want to see how this sounds with a bit of drive. Now, one of the things I noticed about Nirvana and Kurt's playing is that he actually tended to use chorus more often on his solos than actually during the song. So I've got the JHS Morning Glory, which is a fairly mild sounding overdrive. And I'm going to pair that up with the Cologne. I might put it out of phase. So in my opinion, I think this is a super versatile and tweakable version of the old EHX small clone. If you're familiar with the small clone, you'll know that it has just a single knob, which is for rate, and then a single 2-position switch for your depth, either low depth or high depth. This has just so much more going on and is still able to replicate those kind of classic tones, but not just any old tones. It can cover a lot more ground because of that decade switch, which I really, really love. Having an 8-position switch here just gives you so much more range. You've got the mix knob there, so the level knob. There's just so much more going on here. It's just so tweakable. It's amazing how much they were able to pack into this little box here. I mean, I love the idea of the high and low cut switches there as well. I thought it sounded really beautiful in stereo, and having that phase reversal switch there I think is a really welcome bonus as well. I just would like to point out that this runs between 9 and 18 volts, and I was running it on 18 volts today. So according to their website, they say that running it off a good quality power supply, particularly 18 volts, is just going to cut down on things like unwanted noise. So yeah, if you've got an 18 volt power supply, that's the way to go, but it will run off 9. So I grew up in the 90s, and I grew up on a lot of 90s alternative rock. And I thought that this gets closer to those kind of tones than any of my other chorus pedals that I own, and I own quite a few. Most of my other chorus pedals tend to be a bit more glassy and hi-fi, whereas this has its own sort of character, and it's got a bit of a flangey element in there at low speeds, but it's its own thing. It's not like a Boss chorus pedal at all, and I really, really enjoyed playing it today. I had a lot of fun, and I think I'm going to stick this on the board for a while. So if you've got any questions about the Kurtz Cologne, leave a comment below, or you can go to the PastFx website. I've left a link in the description below. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. You can support this channel by going to the Middle Aged Gear Junkie store and buying some merchandise, and you can also join the Middle Aged Gear Junkie Facebook community. Other than that, my name is Jason. Have a wonderful day. See you later.